Hey everybody, happy Thursday. Tonight we are talking about 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell, chapters 9 and 10. So let's jump right in. Chapter 9, the law of magnetism. Who you attract is not determined by what you want. It's determined by who you are. And a leader who's looking for other leaders will attract those who are like himself or herself. If the leader does not have the quality that he or she desires other people to have, that leader most likely will not attract somebody with that quality. So in the chat, I want you guys to type out 5 or 6 qualities of the perfect Plexus ambassador. Just what would you look for in a dream teamer? Just type out some qualities. I'm curious. Let's see. Driven, trustworthy, integrity, character, hardworking, servant leader. Ooh, that's a good one. Oh, godly. Oh, that's good. Busy, kingdom-minded, grit, fun, positive, self-motivated. These are really good. Yes. I want all of those people on my team too. Okay, so which one of those qualities do you think is the most important? If you had to narrow it down to one quality, which one do you think would be the most important for somebody to be successful at this business? Integrity is important, but integrity, sometimes people can be successful without integrity. Now, do I want to work with somebody who doesn't have integrity? No, I don't necessarily want to build with somebody who doesn't have integrity. But surprisingly, integrity is not actually a requirement for success. You guys know anybody successful who doesn't have integrity? Because I can name a bunch, not in Plexus, but just saying as a principle. All right, so let me look at this chat and see if anybody got it. Perseverance, character consistent. This is a long list, but I don't see what I'm looking for. There's literally one thing that if you don't have it, there's no way you could be successful. Actually, Shannon has it. Shannon Sarandos, congratulations, you're the winner. Self-motivated. You cannot be successful in this business if you're not self-motivated, because we're entrepreneurs, right? We don't have anybody to clock in and out to. We don't have a boss. We don't have, people holding us accountable. Like, it's completely up to us what action we are going to take. And we're not going to get in trouble if we don't take it. It's totally up to us. So, I mean, you have to be self-motivated. All right. So that's just trivia. But I do find that very interesting, that is the most important quality for an entrepreneur to be successful. They have to be self-motivated. All right. But anyways, all the other characteristics, they're really good too. But the ones that you listed out, I told you to list 5 or 6 qualities of a perfect Plexus ambassador. Do you possess those characteristics? And you don't have to answer that in the chat. That's just for personal reflection. The qualities you're looking for that in other people that you think, oh, that person, if they decided to do this, they would be very successful, or I want them on my team. Do you have those qualities? Think about your level 1 ambassadors, people that you have personally enrolled. Or it might not be somebody you personally enrolled. It could be a level 2 who no longer has a working upline besides you, but they hung around because you have a relationship with them. Is this quality a strength in the people that you are attracting to this business? You can look at people that you personally enroll and find some generalizations, like just some general things that they have in common. Do they have those qualities? That would be a good indicator of whether you have those qualities. Okay. So I want to attract people who love the Lord, who value their family above all else. They're even willing to make personal sacrifices to protect their marriage and their children. People who are entrepreneurial, people who have big vision, people who have strong work ethic. Those are the types of qualities that I want to attract. And when I look at my level ones, I do see a lot of that. And so that boosts my confidence a little bit. That makes me feel like, oh, okay, so maybe I do have those qualities. There have been times in my business where I have wanted certain qualities in other people that I did not myself possess. So then just being aware of that, I could take action to grow in certain areas. That way I could attract what I wanted in others. Okay. Okay. The people who are drawn to you probably have more similarities than they do differences, especially in a few key areas. Generation. Think about the people who work this business with you. Are they all close in age to you? Mine are not really, interestingly enough. Not all of mine are close in age to me, but they at least are in the same life season. So like Michelle, I think she's like more than 10 years older than me, but she's still raising kids. Her youngest kid is Hannah Kate's age, so she's probably 5 or 6. So I mean, she's in the same season of life, and I've had other people like that too who had children later in life, so they're in the same season, even if they're not necessarily the same age. Attitude. This is a big one, y'all. This one spoke so much to me. I went and made a post about it the other day. But people who view life as a series of opportunities and exciting challenges, they don't want to hear others talk about how bad things are all the time. When we talk about adding value, for me, this is the biggest factor. If somebody adds value to me, a lot of times it has to do with their attitude, just their outlook on life. I do not enjoy being around negative people who see life and every situation as it's not as good as it once was, or it's not as good as it should be. It's annoying to me, to be honest. And he says in the book, people like that bring others down. Do you guys know somebody like that? Do you find that to be true? Do you feel like they're bringing you down when you're around? We call them Debbie Downers. And we can love people like that. However, I sure do not look forward to spending a huge amount of time with somebody like that, right? So attitude is one of the most contagious qualities a human being possesses. And guys, I also want to raise kids who see the world as a series of opportunities and a place to learn, like unlimited things, and go as far as they want to go. Because if you live in America, you can go as far as you want to go. We live in the land of opportunity, and that's why people come all over the world to live here. So it doesn't matter where you're starting from. Everybody starts with some sort of disadvantage, even if they look like they have it all together. I promise you, they have some sort of disadvantage. It doesn't matter where you're starting from. It matters what choices you make. That is going to determine how far you can go. And this is the outlook that I want my kids to have. This is the outlook I adopt for myself. And it's the outlook in the people that I enjoy being around. So attitude is a huge one. What is your attitude on everything? What is your attitude about problems? Do you see an opportunity in a problem? Or do you only see a problem? Does it feel like it's insurmountable to you? Do you feel like hopeless a lot? Like, well, it's not going to change. There's nothing we can do about it. Just going to sit here and complain about it. That doesn't add value. But if you have a positive attitude and you're looking for opportunities, you're going to find them. All right, background is another one. He says that a lot of people on your team will have similar background. Values, it doesn't really matter whether the shared values are positive or negative. Whatever character you possess is likely what you're going to find in the people who follow you. So in the chat, I'd love for you to answer this question. What are your core values? And are you finding that in the people that you attract? Do they share the same core values? I'm seeing freedom, Faith and family, love for God. Okay, so adventurous, a good one. Do you guys see that in the people that you're attracting? Do your people share core values with you? For me, Jesus, family, that's the most important things. Taking care of my kids, that's really important. It'd be hard for me to respect somebody who doesn't take care of their children, right? Freedom, work ethic, personal responsibility, that's a huge one. It's hard for me to respect someone who doesn't take, like, they don't want responsibility, like they shy away from responsibility, because to me that comes across as like laziness or something. I don't know. But anyways, those are my core values. So everybody's core values are different, and it doesn't mean that one is right or wrong or better than the other. It's just it's people's personal preference. And you're generally going to find that the people you attract share core values, because that's what you're going to talk about. All right, energy. That was an interesting thing to me. He says the high energy person thinks the low energy person is lazy, and the low energy person thinks the high energy person is insane. So type in the chat, are you high energy or low energy? High. Did Christina just say low? Get low. Okay. So, some people are saying middle. There's not a lot of lows on here. Interesting. Yeah, it depends. So are you attracting like people? Are you attracting, if you're high energy, are you attracting high energy? If you're low energy, are you attracting low energy? This is a very interesting one to me. Because there was this one time where Christina told me and Michelle that apparently we are intense people. And at first we were just utterly shocked. And we were like, we are not intense. And then we were like, but wait a minute though, Christina's intense. Is this like the pot calling the kettle black? Why is she saying we're intense? She's intense. So I think we're all probably intense. Jules, unmute yourself. Can you give an example of this? If you are high energy, you're likely to get annoyed by somebody with a slower pace. If you're low energy, you're likely to get annoyed by your hyper as all get out upline who wants you to work like a borrowed mule.
I have an example. Okay. Remember that one time we had left convention and I went ahead and booked next year's convention house?
While we were at the airport?
I could not figure out what the heck was wrong with all of y'all. Like, we need a convention house. We know where we're going. We know we need a house. Buy the house. Like the house is bought. What's the problem?
Yes. So we were at convention. They announced
we were at the airport.
Following year's convention would be like 12 months later. We found out where the location would be like in 12 months. Christina booked a house at the airport. It was $3,000 and then was upset because our friends, our leader friends, wouldn't commit. Like, why haven't they paid yet?
I'm like, what is their problem? They know they need a house. They're gonna be homeless. I done snatched us up a house. Why aren't they thanking me? I don't.
I'm like, they're probably just boarding their plane. I'm sure that they'll get to it in like a second and a half if you just take a seat.
There was that one time. That's the only time I've ever been that way.
Yeah, that's the only time. So if you're high energy, you probably can tell because you probably do get annoyed by somebody with a slower pace. Any other examples of this, Jules? High energy versus low energy?
I'm kind of in the middle. I think I lean more towards low, depending on the circumstance. But people who are super high energy come across anxious to me. And then it makes me feel like I don't know what to do with myself.
Yes, I agree with that. You know who's like that? Brandon, Christina's husband. We're in Mexico and me and Christina are laying on beach chairs and he was standing there, like kind of rocking. And I'm like, Brandon, what are you doing? He's like, nothing. I'm like, can you please sit down like or something? Because you do look like you're about to have an anxiety attack and you're making me nervous. Yeah, I agree with that. Anything else? high energy versus low energy?
So I think I'm high energy, but not as high energy as my husband. So that Disney trip that he planned for us, which I'm so grateful he plans it. I mean, he took us 5 days back to back to back to parks, and the boys were just flat out done. And I was done. And it was Thanksgiving Day. And I'm like, how about we just sit around and lay at the pool? And he's like, what are you talking about? We have Legoland to go to. And so we talked about, okay, next trip, we've got to add in like some downtime. So, I mean, I think we're both high energy, but his is like way higher energy than mine.
Yeah, that's probably why he flies airplanes and jumps out of airplanes and
Yep.
yeah, I don't know if I'm high or low energy. I think I'm a good balance of both. I can be both. Like Chris. I'm just like that. Were you about to say something, Michelle? It looks like you're unmuted.
Yeah, I just think it's such an interesting definition, because both can be self-motivated and both can be disciplined, but it's very easy to mistake the low energy as not motivated, and to mistake the high energy as crazy and not caring. So it's just a really interesting, like, you helped me understand this when you said, so-and-so may never show up as you do because you've got a different style. And so just understanding that allows you to love people in the way that they need to be loved and encourage them, because like Deirdre's low energy, she's my level 1 and I'm high energy. And if she tries to work like me, she will burn out in about 10 minutes. And if I try to work like her, I will go crazy and put myself in a loony bin, but both are valid. So I love this context because it just gives such understanding and can give appreciation for both. It doesn't have to be, and both can be not self-motivated, and both can be self-motivated, but it helps give understanding where your people are and what they need and how they show up. I love it.
Yeah, that's really good perspective. I love that you said that. Yeah, that's why I'm saying I don't know if I'm high or low energy, because I feel like I'm high energy, but then if I think about the way Fallon has worked or the way Christina works, like I feel like it would stress me right out. So
No, you are high energy. You just focus the energy in other areas than we do.
maybe that's
You
what
work with the same intensity. It has just been, what is different is you have focused the energy in development versus recruiting or training, or like it's the same intensity, just focus in a different direction. You're high energy.
I'm tired of you calling me names.
And you're annoyed by people who you perceive as lazy. You are definitely high energy.
Okay, maybe I am high energy. I don't know. Okay, good point. Okay, so giftedness is the next one, that you're probably going to attract people with the same level of giftedness as you. People don't generally go out looking for mediocre people to follow, is what he says in the book. People are attracted to talent and excellence, especially in their area of giftedness. So if you're good at something, you admire other people who are good at the same thing. Side note, Facebook groups are a really good way to expand your network with people who are passionate about what you are passionate about. Just a tip. Also, I find it interesting that Instagrammers, which is completely different than Facebook, but Instagrammers love other people who are good Instagrammers, because that's like a special area of talent or something. And I'm not saying you got to go be an Instagrammer to be successful. I've never recruited anybody off Instagram, neither has Christina. I think Michelle might recruited 1 or 2 from Instagram, but I'm just bringing that up because I do find it to be interesting that it's like an area of talent. Okay, leadership ability. So the people that you attract will have leadership ability similar to your own. They're going to be similar in style and ability to you. If you are dissatisfied with the leadership ability of the people that you are attracting, then you should go back to chapter 3 and embrace the law of process so that you can work to improve your leadership skill. If you want to grow a team, if you want to grow an organization, grow the leader. If you find that you are attracting people who are unreliable or people who are untrustworthy, examine your character. And guys, this applies to parenting as well. If a person has a child who's constantly in trouble, let's just say they had 4 kids and one of them is just always in trouble, just an especially challenging child, then you might assume that they just have a strong-willed child, this one. But if that person has 4 children and all 4 children are constantly in trouble, then it's probably safe to assume that it's the parent, right? So take a look at the people that you are attracting. What do they have in common? Because who you are is who you're going to attract. And it's also who you are going to produce. And I remember one time, this is also a side note, we were on a Zoom and all of my level 1 leaders showed up on this Zoom. And it wasn't a Freedom Team Zoom. It was a Pink Power Zoom with Jewel leaders. And you didn't, Christina? Oh,
I did not.
Oh, you did not. Okay. Well, all the people who did show up in Hulk masks and Batman masks, they were, one of them had pantyhose on their head, on their face, like they was about to rob a bank. They were all my level 1s. And so I'm sitting here thinking, everybody's going to look around this Zoom and see these fools acting crazy and assume that it's because of me, because they were all my level 1s. Oh, it wasn't Michelle either. No, Michelle would never do something like that. Christina totally would have, but they must
had
not
no
have
mask.
Oh,
I
you
had
didn't
no,
have a
I
mask.
had no mask.
Okay. Well, somebody got resourceful and wore pantyhose. But anyways, so I was a little afraid of this law when I first learned it because I just thought everybody's going to think that I put all those people up to that. But anyways, who you are is who you attract. So that is the law of magnetism. All right, let's jump into chapter 10, the law of connection. This law is important because your success in this business has a large part to do with how well your team performs. And they're either going to appreciate this or resent this depending on their relationship with you. So let me say that latter for those in the back. Your success in this business has a lot to do with how well your team is doing. They're either going to appreciate this or resent this depending on their relationship with you. That is why law of connection is important. So relationship involves connection, and connection requires intentionality, and it requires you to be interested in another person. And it also involves, wait for it, emotions, right? When it comes to working with people, the heart comes before the head. That's what John Maxwell had said. I did not say that. To me, you're talking about the heart instead of the head. He's saying that you have to rely on emotions to connect versus logic or facts. You cannot move people into action unless you first move them with emotion. That'll preach to a green. Okay. Or maybe a red. It's vital that a leader connects with a person at an emotional level before that leader gives instruction or asks a person to do anything. A good leader looks to find a connection with a person through shared interests or maybe even a joke before giving instruction. How does this apply to public speaking? We got to address this when we're talking about leadership, this issue of public speaking, because here's the thing. If you are a leader, you are going to need to speak to your team. Am I saying you have to lead a Monday night call with 100 people on it? No. But you at least have to be willing to speak to your team. And oftentimes that means in a group setting. So it might start out with just a handful of people, but then your team's going to grow. Okay. So I do think that this skill of public speaking, it is going to be important to you as a leader. Not, like I said, not for massive amounts of people necessarily. I don't want to scare y'all, but if you're a leader, it's necessary for you to communicate in a group setting to more than one person. Okay, so how does this apply to public speaking? Well, what kind of speaker do you like to listen to? Do you like to listen to somebody who's just like spouting off dry statistics, or somebody who's engaging you with a story or a joke? I love this example of Frederick Douglass from the book. He could make people laugh at a slave owner preaching the duties of Christian obedience. He could make them see the humiliation of a black maiden ravished by a brutal slave owner. He could make them hear the sobs of a mother separated from her child. Through him, people could cry, curse, and feel. Through him, they could live slavery. So that's a great example of you can't move people to action unless you first move them with emotion. So Jules, this does not mean that we have to hold hands and sing Kumbaya with people. But what are some examples of how you have moved people into action with emotion? How do you do that?
I think one emotion that I'm willing to use to connect is vulnerability. Like I don't mind being vulnerable with my team. And sometimes I notice that moves them into action because they're able to see that it can be overcome. Whatever they're struggling with, I'm willing to show them I'm willing to expose myself and show them how I overcame it. And so then they're willing to go do the action I suggest because it's a proven process if I also was there and overcame. So vulnerability, when I think about connecting with emotions, because emotions can feel kind of foreign to me, vulnerability is one that I am willing to embrace. It does not bother me a bit to be vulnerable. So that's something I try to do.
Yeah, it's important to be vulnerable as a leader because nobody wants to follow a perfect leader. You know why? Because nobody feels like they can be perfect. And so if you are willing to be vulnerable and share what you have struggled with your people, it makes them feel more normal. Any other examples? How have you moved someone into action using emotion?
I think three-way calls when you're vision casting to someone new, your passion and your posture about this opportunity and what it can do for them and how you genuinely can see that for them speaks to people.
Mm-hmm. So how about someone else's emotion? Because we're not going to move people to action with our emotions. People will move into action because of their emotions. So how does this apply?
Well, I think what came to my mind is a similar spin on what Christina was saying about vulnerability. And I mean, I just think the way that you've done that for me when I've known where I've wanted to go, but then maybe, I've said this before, we've had this, not this year, but my emerald year was the hardest year of my marriage ever. And that was full of emotion, right? And, thought my mom was going to die. That was full of emotion. And so being able to use feel, felt, found, and not necessarily getting in the pool with somebody, but recognizing and validating what people are going through and walking with them through it, connecting to the heart instead of it just being about business. Because if you don't validate and understand where people are and just expect them to be doing their numbers without recognizing, they feel like their marriage is falling apart or, whatever it is, understanding, connecting heart to heart before you're going the distance with business, I knew that I could really trust you because you cared about me and what I was going through. And that made all the difference in the world. Did I communicate that clearly?
Yes, definitely. Yep. It was a good connection. You're saying I connected by supporting you through difficult things you were going through.
Yeah, and because I was very emotional. And so you could see that and offer perspective and share what you had gone through in a similar vein, which also gave me hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Vulnerability, like Christina shared. Yeah, I love that. So whenever I'm thinking about moving someone into action with emotion, I just think about focusing on them and what they want by asking good questions and then listening to what it is they're saying they want, and then connecting the dots for them between what it is they really want, but maybe haven't allowed themselves to feel that want in a while. Or maybe they haven't allowed themselves to like really dream, or maybe they gave up on their dream or didn't think it was possible or never saw a way to be able to get there. I like to know what it is people want because I want to be able to connect the dots for them, that Plexus might be the way that, I mean, Plexus can provide that for them. And so if you ask good questions and you figure out what it is people want, they generally, people are attached emotionally to what they want, right? If you start talking about people what they really, really want deep down, it does bring up some emotion. Sometimes it might bring up emotion of like desire. Sometimes it might bring up emotion of like kind of sadness because they realized they hadn't thought about that in a while, or they just gave up on it or whatever. And now you're giving them hope again. That right there, hope, that's kind of an emotion, right? And that will drive somebody to action. And so you can't connect with someone emotionally if you're not focused on them and asking them good questions and then really listening to them, figuring out what it is they would like to have in life.
Can I just say something about
Yes.
that, Brittany?
Yes, you can,
That is
Terry.
what I was
Say
gonna
something.
say. You took all the words out of my mouth, because I remember when I met Brittany for the first time, everything she just said, that is exactly what she did to me. And I left there. I love the community, but I left there like, oh my goodness. And that is when I started.
Is intense.
Yes.
What you thought.
I mean, I was just like, she is asking me all kind of questions that like I've never even thought about. And so it was just, I really and truly have not ever felt so connected in my life. Like she just was really good at what she did. So
Oh, that is so nice, Terry.
Yeah.
And then you went Emerald 3 months later.
sure did. See there?
Well, that is a very nice compliment that I moved you into action with emotion by connecting with you and figuring out what it was you want. I know what you wanted. And you have that now. You want to quit your job. And now you have that. So I'm so proud. All right. But thank you for sharing that, Terry. Okay. Jules, what have been some of the best ways that your leaders have connected with you? Oh, Michelle just shared some of that. And so did Terry. Anybody else? It doesn't have to be just a Plexus leader. Any leader in your life, a pastor, a national leader, maybe some other leader you had in your life. What's some of the best ways that your leaders have connected with you?
I think when I think about one of the most influential leaders in my life, is my softball coach. She just shows up she's just there, her presence. She doesn't say much, like she's real quiet, but when it's something meaningful, good, bad, or otherwise, she just shows up. Like she's just there. Like if I picture hard things in my life, like she coached me 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. But there were hard things in my life after that, and she was part of every single one of them. And if she wasn't physically present, she was communicating. Like and I don't know how, she probably does that for hundreds of people. I have no idea. But I always thought I was special. Like she makes me feel like she shows up for me. Like she pays attention.
How does she make you feel that way?
Well, I mean, I just think about like when my brother died, we live in the same neighborhood actually. And so she just walked up and sat on the steps. I was sitting on the steps by myself at my mom and dad's house. And she just sat on the steps. She probably sat there for 15 minutes. I don't think we said a word. She got up, she patted my back, and she walked back to her car. She's in my diamond dock. So here we are, 20 years later. And I mean, we meet up quarterly. If I don't initiate, she does, just holds me accountable. throughout every season of my life, she's been trying to get me to come to church. Like, I mean, there were times she forced it when she was my coach, she could force it, and she did. And so I showed up to church, because she expected me to. And then we actually, as a family, Brandon and I got plugged back into church because of her persistence. So we don't go to church together anymore. And even in that season, even in us deciding that we were being led somewhere else, she shows up. Like, she's supportive. She asks questions. I don't know.
That's good. Love that.
So she's intentional. I guess the word is intentional. She's very intentional to not get so busy that she just overlooks. She's very intentional. And she might not can do that for hundreds. I have no idea. But when I talk to her about what's happening in her life, it is always others focused. It's always this kid that graduated a few years ago that's trying to go to college, and she's helping them secure this funding or whatever. It's always others focused.
Sounds like a great leader. Anybody else? Example?
We had a
Yeah.
teacher. Oh,
go ahead.
go ahead, Terry.
Okay, so for Christina, like, that was just her word for the year. And to me, that is, I'm a connector. So for her, I don't know, it's just been like her focus this year is just to make sure she's connected, and she has killed it. But she knows what's important to me. And so she makes those things important to her. Like, she's constantly asking me about things that are important, that are going on in my life. She knows I love to shop, and she does not like to shop unless it's online, y'all. So she was like, yeah, I'm going to meet you for Black Friday shopping, knowing good and well she really didn't want to, but just like connecting with me, just doing things that I know she didn't love that day, but I loved that she made it 4 hours going with me and just doing things that were important to me. So that is special to me.
That's good.
You're killing it with a connection, Christina.
Killing it.
We had a teacher in high school my freshman year who was just incredibly passionate. She was really good at seeing the individual, making them feel seen and heard, to the point of everybody in the class loved what we were doing and was like on it with their assignments, even though it might not have been their favorite subject. And they just saw her heart behind loving and serving people, and she was philanthropy minded. And the impact that she left. So she actually tragically died that year. But 16 years later, there are still people going to her parents' page, like hundreds of people that went to our school, just saying like all of these wonderful things about her and how much of an impact and influence that she had in their life for this short amount of time that they were in it. And when I think of her, I think like, wow, that's a really great example of passion and making people feel seen and truly listening, and then doing something with that instead of just, oh yeah, I'm listening to you, but making an impact with that.
How do you think she came to be so well loved? Like, what actions did she take that made people feel that way?
She would have one-on-one conversation with you in the classroom. Like, she would see that kid who's like struggling and maybe not the most popular kid in the classroom and edify them in front of everyone. Or she would write like very personalized notes in our journals that we would have based on the book we were reading or whatever. She was our English teacher. She just cared about everyone, and she would talk about how special each individual was, but she would do that in a personal way. So a lot of it was like personal edification and then public edification. So I think a lot of it came from that. And then expressing why she was that way, that she just cared and she wanted to make a difference and wanted us to go out and do the same.
That's awesome. So she obviously was paying attention to other people, focused on other people, not inside of her head and in her own thoughts, but really focused outwardly for her to be able to give public and private recognition. She obviously was paying attention and observing, and others focus. That's really good. I love that. Okay, public speaking tip number 2. One key to connecting with others is recognizing that even in a large audience or a small group, doesn't matter, if you have more than one person, you have to relate to people, the group, as individuals. So if you're going to do a live video, for example, you're going to be talking to a lot more than one person, right? So what you need to think about before you hit go live is one person. Just speak to one person that you know needs to hear your message. Same thing if you are preparing a team call as a leader and you're going to speak to your team in a group, you just think about what your team individually, what each one of them needs to hear. You just talk to one person. If you're leading a sippancy, say what you know one person needs to hear. And chances are it's going to be more than one person that benefits from whatever you say. But if you tend to freeze before you go live, especially, generally when I'm going to do a live video and I get so nervous and so worked up before I go live and I'm so scared I'm going to say something wrong or stupid, and then there's proof of it that can't be deleted because somebody might have screen recorded it and then my grandchildren are going to see it, then I realize that I'm focusing inward. I'm worried more about what people are going to think of me than I am about what someone else needs to hear. When I get out of my own head and start thinking about what do I need to say to this person? What does somebody need to hear? It really calms my nerves. And so if you're feeling extremely nervous, just know that you can lessen that by focusing outward instead of inward. Okay, then he gives step-by-steps for how to connect with others. Not step-by-step, it's more like tips, ways to connect with others. The first one was interesting. Connect with yourself. You wouldn't think, I mean, it's really the opposite of what I just said. Focus on others, not yourself. He says, if you want to connect with others, connect with yourself. So that means knowing and liking who you are. You must know who you are and have confidence in yourself if you desire to connect with others. People don't heed the call of an uncertain trumpet. So, Jules, how do you get to a point where you know and you like yourself rather than wishing that you were like someone else?
I'll go.
Okay.
So I think for me, it was learning about the color personalities was the big changer for me, because honestly, my whole life, I wondered why I wasn't more yellow. And I was like, there must be something wrong with me. And then when I learned about the color personalities and I learned that I was mostly red, I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes sense. Like I can be this way. This is how God made me. And from there, it just started this whole journey of more self-confidence and loving who I am and working from my strengths.
That's so good, Abby. So all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, I'm this color and I like this color and I like me and I don't want to be yellow. I want to be red. I like reds. I actually did write down for my answer to this question, learn about your personality type. I really think that is the number one way to know yourself and like yourself, is to just learn about yourself. Exactly what Abby just said. She hit the nail on the head. I'm glad you shared that, Abby. Any other ways to know and like yourself rather than wishing you were like somebody else?
I think receiving what others think about you, those that you trust and value. Receiving what?
I feel personally attacked.
Shut up. Like if paying attention to people who are where you want to be or who you value and respect, like just receiving what they have to say, you should feel personally attacked because you are the worst at this. The absolute worst.
Christina's talking one person right now. One person. I know exactly who you have in mind.
Y'all, there's this reel on Instagram that's like what this is like when you try to give Brittany a compliment. You're like, hey, you really did a great job on that coaching call. And she's like, what? That can't be right. No, I didn't. Like, you just made that compliment really awkward for all of us. I wish I could take it back. Like, just where everybody feels weird now. Like, what's happening? But yeah, just choosing to receive what other people say.
How do you receive it? How do you do that?
I'm a type 3. And so when people get it right and tell me all the right things about me, I'm like, good job. I'm glad you recognize. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, you just have to look at results. I think for me to like who I am, I just have to look at results. If I don't like the results I currently got, I'm telling you, you have told me time and again, like when you don't like something and you decide to change it, you go do what it takes to change it. So I just have proven to myself time and time again, I can change. I don't like my body, I can change it. I don't like this, I can change it. Like I just proved to myself, like I am capable of change. Everything is figure outable. And it might require a lot of falling down, lots of it, but that doesn't bother me. But I can prove that I can figure things out. And then other people appreciate the fact that I have figured things out, and then they say nice things. And then I just choose to agree with them.
Okay. Yep. All good things. All right. So in order to know and like yourself, rather than wishing you were someone else, you can, number one, study your personality types. There's lots of different kinds. I think Michelle listed a few in the comments. You can learn to receive a compliment. And what else? How else can you know and like yourself instead of wishing you were like someone else? Anything else?
Well, maybe it's kind of the same, but for me, knowing what I'm good at and then getting really good at it makes me feel competent in that. And then the confidence just comes with being competent. So like I know things that I'm good at, and then that makes me feel good about myself.
Yes.
If I can do things that I am good at,
Yep.
Yeah.
So being self-aware, knowing your strengths, staying in your strength zone, it's going to give you good results. Yeah, I love that.
And also knowing what I'm not great at and knowing that that's okay.
Yeah, it is okay.
Like, cause I don't really know what, but some things I'm not great at. I know they're out there. But it's okay because we're not going to be good at everything.
Yeah.
So that's okay.
Yeah. So a couple more that I wrote down is have integrity. If you want to know and like yourself, you need to have integrity. That's called having a clear conscience. And also, I think doing your best is important. Because when you do your best, you're generally going to feel good about it. If you know you're not doing your best, you're probably not going to have that great of self-esteem. You're probably going to beat yourself up a lot. So those are some things that I wrote down if you want to know and like yourself. So it's interesting to me that he says in order to be a good connector with other people, it starts with you connecting with yourself. So if you've never taken a personality test and multiple different ones, like I said, I recommend different ones because they measure different things. They might measure temperament or what motivates you, or just different aspects of who you are as a person. So be self-aware. And also it's interesting to me that out of the highest paid CEOs in America, the number one trait that they all have in common was self-awareness. So just food for thought. Okay. Next way to connect with people, be open and sincere. People can smell a phony a mile away. Also, don't say words just to flatter people. If it's not true, don't say it just because it seems like the courteous thing to say. People can tell when you're just flattering them or when you're being genuine. So be open and be sincere. Next thing, know your audience. This is important. Speak when you're talking to somebody. This goes for speaking to someone individually, one-on-one, just having a conversation, or if you're speaking to an audience, like public speaking, it doesn't matter. It applies to both. You speak to what they care about, not what you care about. Have you ever had to endure somebody talking and rambling about something that you could literally not care less about? Does that add value to you? Does it make you want to spend more time with that person? I mean, you guys all got on this call because you want to hear about and you want to learn about leadership. What if I just got on here and I just started talking about my trip to Pigeon Forge instead? Like literally describing the roller coaster at Dollywood.
I would like that.
it went it went this way and that way and upside down, and then it was corkscrew, and then like whoo, and then like, oh, like if that's what I got on here talking to you guys about, you guys would be bored to tears, and then you probably wouldn't show up next week, because that's something that I care about, because I was there and I experienced it and it was fun. But you don't care about that. It's listen, I get equally as bored when people try to explain to me an entire movie that they watched. Bores me to tears. You know what? I fall asleep during an actual movie. Listening to somebody talk about a movie, worse. Okay. So focus on what they want to talk about and not what you want to talk about. This requires personal sacrifice. Side note, it also requires asking good questions and listening and just being interested in other people so that you can figure out what they do want to talk about. Okay. Focus on them, not yourself. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Have you guys read that book? If you haven't, you should. It was written in the 1930s and it's still a bestseller. So that tells you right there, it's very valuable info. But if you can get somebody talking about themselves, then they're going to think that you're a great conversationalist. That's what I learned from that book. Like, you can say 5 words. Hi, how are you? Where are you from? Or I don't know how many words that was, probably more than 5. But you don't even have to really say much. If you can just ask a good question and get them talking about themselves, they're going to leave the conversation feeling connected with and like, oh, I love talking to Chris or whoever. Okay. This is so important for your prospects, especially y'all. If you want to connect with your prospects, just if you don't know what to say or what to talk to them about, just memorize these 4 questions. Okay. Keep these in your back pocket for when you're talking to anybody, any stranger, anywhere. Doesn't matter if it's online, in person, if you know them or if you don't know them. 4 questions. Where are you from? What do you do? What inspired you to go into that field? What do you love about it? And these questions are not with an agenda attached. These questions are not so you can get them to join your team, but it will provoke a connection, and it can get a good conversation going. That's a good way to start learning about someone that you don't know. Okay. Here's the next one to be a good connector. Meet people where they are at. Adapt to others. Don't expect them to adapt to you. Communicate on their level. I love this quote. Leadership is accepting someone where they are and then helping them get somewhere. So remember that if you want to be a diamond right now, you probably didn't want to be a diamond at first. Probably just was not on your radar, with the exception of maybe Emily. Most people on the call did not want to be a diamond at first. It was a process. It was a process to get you to even think about wanting to do this opportunity, and then following up, planting seeds, things like that. It was probably a process to get you to a point where you're thinking, I would like to go all the way in this business. And I'm starting to see the possibility. That was a process. So just remember that for your team, it's also going to be a process of meeting them where they're at and helping them grow in their vision and in their belief and in their mindset. And do not discount somebody just because they're not all in yet. Next way to connect with somebody, believe in them. It's one thing to communicate with somebody because you have something of value to say, and it's another thing altogether to communicate with somebody because you believe they have value. And I love this too from the book. People's opinion of us has less to do with what they see in us than it does with what we can help them see in themselves. I love that so much. So true. Jules, what should we be helping people see in themselves, and how do we do that?
I mean, their potential, their strengths, how this can be the platform for them to realize their hopes and dreams. Get on a flippin' vision call. Mm-hmm. Absolutely unlocking potential and possibilities for people.
Yes.
calling out their strengths specifically, why they would be good at this and why this is the answer to their problems.
Yes. Love that. And that they can do it. Totally. While I have you here, Michelle, let me ask you this next question. How long does it normally take to connect with someone, and how can you tell if you have actually connected?
Oh, I think that depends. I mean, you have to ask really good questions. And if they're answering the questions, if you are hearing, how do you know that you've connected? I feel like there's a right answer and I'm missing it.
No, there's not really a right answer. I think it's different for everybody. For me, it's for me, it's usually if I've made them laugh. If I made somebody laugh, I feel like they like me. But that might not be true for everybody.
No, that would not be my litmus test because I don't make too many people laugh. I'd be in trouble if that was it. But asking questions and engaging in real conversation, because I'm not plastic. I can't talk about the weather for more than a millisecond, but, really talking. And I feel like you can really tell a connection. Well, I guess I did make Leah laugh because I was amazed that she had had a baby and looked like a Barbie doll the next day. But engagement, going back and forth in the conversation.
Yeah. So probably you're sitting there thinking, I like this person. Does it make you feel like you've made a connection?
Yes.
I think that's true for you. And it's true for me too. I can tell if I've made a connection because I will usually feel like I'm enjoying this. I like this person.
I think too, like if you've had a conversation back and forth, even in Messenger, and then they're coming back to you, or they see a post that you put up and they're like, hey, tell me more about this. That to me says, okay, we've connected. They trust me. We can continue to build the relationship. So that's what I'm finding is a lot of people come to me just with random stuff, even still speech therapy stuff, because they've seen, okay, she's a speech therapist, or she was, and they're connecting that way.
That's good. Yep. I love that. All right. Let's wrap this up real quick. Some leaders have problems because they believe that connecting is the responsibility of the followers. But successful leaders are always initiators. They are going to take the first step with other people, and they are going to make the effort to continue building relationships. They're not expecting people to just come to them. Leaders who relate to their people and really connect with them are leaders that people will follow to the ends of the earth. They feel cared about. The vision of the leader becomes the aspiration of their people, and the impact that a leader who is strong in connection can make is really incredible. So go practice that this week, the law of connection. Go find 3 people on your team that you can learn 3 new things about that you didn't know before. And do the same thing with your prospects. Go talk to 3 people who are not on your team and learn 3 new things each about them, and just put this into practice, being interested in others. And also congratulations, because you all have made it halfway through this book study, and I'm super proud of your commitment, and I hope that you guys are learning, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the book. I will see y'all next week. Bye. Good night.